Good evening.
Greetings.
It looks like it's already recording, Susanna, but at the top of your screen, when I make you host, if it doesn't say recording, just make sure you do record.
Got it.
Um, and thank you so much. I really
Of course.
appreciate your running this tonight. I'm gonna make you host. Hang on just a
Great.
sec.
And I already have the PowerPoint pulled up, so we're good to go.
Oh, yay. Thank you. I appreciate it. Hang a second. And I have consistently made Megan and Christy co-hosts so they
Got
can
it.
if they need anything. And I think you told me about breakout rooms, so I think you're set.
We're good.
Okay.
All right.
All right, are you the host now?
I am the host.
Hooray. Okay, have a lovely evening and thank you again. I appreciate it.
Of course, we'll see you around.
Okay, bye.
Hi, Brenda. How's it going?
It's going well. We're enjoying having Todd with us.
Be
He's
hard
been
not to. He's wonderful.
he is.
I'm
He
so glad it's working.
yeah, it's working very well. We're really happy. He's doing a great job. Um he's assisting with the our stewardship campaign, has some, just really good ideas that he's seen in the past. It's really been nice.
Great.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, other people are coming on, so I will silence myself. But
We
looking forward to tonight. I already
me
am
too.
meeting with I'm already meeting with my little team, and yeah, we've started working.
Wonderful. I'm not surprised to hear any of it. That's all good news. All
Yeah.
right. I'm going to shut myself down until we're closer to time, but I'll see you all in just a few minutes.
Okay.
Hi, Mary.
Oh, I'm here. Good
I'm
evening.
good.
I forgot to unmute myself. I'm sorry.
Okay, no. Welcome.
Nice to be here. We're finally doing this.
Hi, Mary.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being part of this.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. I hope I can help.
Mm.
Um, I'm nervous, but I think we'll be fine.
Oh,
I haven't
don't be
presented
nervous.
for a while.
Mm.
So
Well,
everybody's so welcoming and friendly. So once we get started, I'm sure it'll be fine.
it's a friendly crowd.
I know it always is. So, which is great.
Mm.
And thank you again for all your help and prep. I really
Oh, thank
appreciate
you.
that. I keep looking at numbers.
Yeah.
Okay, I hope I can.
Well, you are finance, right? So you should be,
Yes,
Yeah.
I know, but I don't really go in and do the books. Wayne does that, which
Ah.
is a blessing. But I have to admit, I'm involved mostly with our investments and things like that. So I think because I was managing the trust for a disabled friend of mine for
Oh,
the past 20 years.
oh gosh.
She just passed 4 years ago.
Mm.
And I think that really gave me a lot of experience in managing trusts and, for people
Yeah.
who are in need and nonprofits as well. So it really helped.
Mm.
I had good people that I learned that God graced me with and helped me. So, and they continue to help me.
Mm.
So that was great.
God provides.
So yes, most people don't want to have anything to do with money or touch it. I really like getting into the numbers. So, because it does good
Good for you.
things. It does do good things. So,
The second best part about being a priest is that I never have to do algebra again.
Oh, well, that was true. I gave up algebra after 10th grade.
I had to
First.
pass one college course,
Uh,
and there was much rejoicing on that day.
but what's number
Normally,
one on your list?
being a priest.
Oh,
Just being a priest in general is the best thing about being a priest.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, I misunderstood. I thought,
I
yeah.
love my work. I love my work. Never thought it would happen, but I do love it.
Mm.
In the past couple of meetings we've had, the Reverend Canon Caroline Carson has been hosting and running the PowerPoint and assisting Megan and Christy and Stephanie with the presentations. She had another meeting that she had to attend this evening. So I will be helping out as much as I can in my capacity to do so. Megan and Christy, I've made you co-hosts, so if I really foul it up, you can hop in and save the day. But hopefully, I think I've done this enough to where that won't have to happen. And I do have the PowerPoint as well. So when we are ready
Good.
for that in a few minutes, I'll go ahead and pop that up and we'll get started. But we're still about 5 minutes out. So if
Right.
you all want to go get a drink or a snack or take care of anything else, you've got 4 minutes left to do
I
that.
have a very bad connection. I've got like a triple voice, so I don't know if we can do something about that. I didn't have that before.
If nobody else
Stephanie,
is, yeah, go ahead, Megan.
you
Like
don't,
an echo chamber.
you don't sound bad to me, but what you might want to do is leave and come back in and see
All
if
right,
that
I'll
takes
try
care of
that
it.
because this is horrible.
Okay.
It's like
Yeah.
12 people talking at once. I
Oh.
cannot hear a thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll
Okay.
leave and I'll
Close.
come back.
Yep. See if that helps.
It's the Zoom version of, have you tried turning it off and turning it back on?
It is. It is. And I hope it works for her. She's going to be introducing us this evening.
Oh, super. Okay.
Okay, let me get her back in.
I want to share this. I just got a text from Mother Mantell. She's going to try and hop on.
Great.
So that
Great.
would be wonderful.
Stephanie, how's your sound? Is it any better?
1000% better. I can hear one
Great.
person at a time, not an echo chamber.
Good.
Okay, it is 7 o'clock p.m. and I know that we're all wanting to be respectful of everybody's time, so we'll go ahead and get started. As I was explaining a couple of minutes ago, usually the Reverend Canon Caroline Carson has been helping facilitate these meetings. She's not able to be with us tonight, so I am the Reverend Canon Susanna Cates, and I will be helping as much as I can to do this. And I see that our friend Louis Guns has already remembered the assignments from the last couple of meetings and has put his name and his church into the chat. So if everybody could please take a moment and just introduce yourselves via the chat. And while you're doing that, I'm going to pull up the PowerPoint because that's where our opening prayer and everything else is. And we will go ahead and get started with that. Give me one moment to get that going. Here we go. And let's make it so that you don't have to see all the other stuff on there. Hold on. There we go. All right. And whenever whoever is starting is ready, I am
Right.
ready for you.
All right, thank you so much, Mother Susanna. Opening our hearts, sharing our treasure, our annual stewardship campaign. We'd like to welcome everyone to Project Resource. We're part of the Stewardship Commission of the Diocese of New Jersey. Could I have the next slide, please? This is our opening prayer. Generous and loving God, we come to you with grateful hearts and eager minds, knowing that all we are and all we have come from you. We offer you thanks and praise for the beauty of changing seasons, for our families and friends, for all the blessings of this life, and even for the challenges you place before us. Help us make stewardship of your gifts our way of life, so that we may serve our congregations, our communities, and the world with the gifts you give us as faithful witnesses to Christ our Lord. Amen. Next slide, please. This is the third of 3 sessions. So on August 20th, we are doing Deep Dive, Generational Trends and Diverse Congregations. Next slide, please. The Stewardship Commission of the Diocese, these are the people that have created your project resource team and all the items. Christy McGuire from St. Francis Dunellen, co-chair. The Reverend Megan Thomas, retired co-chair. The Reverend Nicole Kurkowski, priest in charge from All Saints Lakewood. Lou Price, Church of the Advent from Cape May. And I'm Stephanie Bodine, and my husband Bill from St. Stephen's Whiting. Next slide. Where is our treasure? Our hearts. Do not be afraid, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions and give alms. Make purses for yourselves that do not wear out, an unfailing treasure in heaven, where no thief comes near and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. From Luke 12:32-34. Next slide.
Hi, Megan Thomas here, and this is the agenda for this evening. We hope to cover a lot of ground this evening, but our focus will be primarily on generational trends we are seeing and considerations around cultural, linguistic, ethnic diversity. Next slide, please. So this is our brief little reminder that you really ought to look back at sessions 1 and 2. In session 2, we touched on cultivating a spirit of generosity, overcoming the fall humdrums, we've always done it that way attitude, maintaining momentum throughout the year, and we touched on the program Invite, Welcome, and Connect. Next slide, please. It's important that as we do this work, we stay grounded. We're teaching a lot of little technical things, approaches to ministry moments, letters that you could send to your congregation, things that you might do to enhance your stewardship season. And it is easy to get bogged down in details and to feel like the work is always something new, always something different. It's the next new burden. But we need to remember that people give, of course, not so much to an organization, but for the mission of an organization, including our congregations. And the mission, chiefly our mission, is to reconcile ourselves to God and to one another. And in addition, if you are working as a stewardship chair in your congregation, or a member of vestry or finance committee, or you are the treasurer, don't forget that what you are doing is in fact ministry. If you approach the work of the stewardship season and even year-round stewardship with a sense of abundance rather than a sense of scarcity, I think you may even find joy and not merely satisfaction in the work of stewardship. I like this quote from Henry Nouwen, his book, A Spirituality of Fundraising. He says, "We have something to offer: friendship, prayer, peace, love, fidelity, affection, ministry with those in need. And these things are so valuable that people are willing to make their resources available to sustain them. From beginning to end, fundraising as ministry is grounded in prayer and undertaken in gratitude." Next slide. Lou, you're on.
Yes, I'm Lou Price with Church of the Advent in Cape May. And I'm going to start with what are some of the generational differences in church involvement? And how does this help you think about your stewardship campaign and how you might frame it? I'm going to present some data which was collected by the Lake Institute on Faith and Giving, looking across various faith traditions, not just the Episcopal Church, but I think we as Episcopalians will find some of the data quite interesting. The source of this data is a survey that they did in 2023. So what you'll see is a lot of stuff here, and you're going to get copies of these slides. So don't be overwhelmed by all the numbers. But we've looked at the various generations, the matures, the age 80 plus, the boomers, which I am, a few years into the beginning of the boomer population, Gen X, the age 49 to 50s, the millennials, age 30 to 48, and the Gen Zs, which are our younger under 30 population. I think you'll find this interesting. The matures is not surprising that 61% of those who attend church actually donate to the church, and a little over half of them volunteer to the church. Now, they find interest in pastoral care, which kind of makes sense. They're getting older. They need some help. They want to help their friends. They also, though, are interested in supporting the institution. They're interested in the budget of the church, and they care about the church for future generations. The boomers aren't a whole lot different. 48% of those who go to church, a little under half, actually donate to the church, and about half do volunteer. Now, they want to understand the church finances. They want to comb through the budget before they give. They want to make sure it's a place that's using the money well for mission and managing it well. They also are interested in making sure the church will be there down the road. Now, the boomers are the wealthiest generation. I heard a statistic recently that $40 trillion is going to be passed down from the boomers to the millennials and younger generations, as the boomers pass away. And it's also interesting that if you look at the 55 plus, which cuts in a little into the Gen X's, 70% of household assets are held by 55 and over individuals. That's up from about 51% in the year 2000. So the point is, there's a lot of money in this boomer population, and with some of the matures also. How does Gen X and millennials differ? Interestingly enough, and this shocked me, a higher percentage donate to the church, 56% versus 48% for the boomers. About the same number volunteer for the Gen X's, but as you move down into the millennials, they're up to 65%. They care. But what do they care about? They care about missions. They care about ministries. They care about projects that are being done in the community. They care about grassroots organization. They want to make a difference in the church. They're not particularly interested in the budget. They're not particularly interested in, will the church be there down the road? It's not something that's in their mindset so much. And the Gen X's, as you'll see, are somewhat less trusting than maybe the boomers and the matures. Now, where things really get different are with the Gen Zs, the under 30s. We don't have the data on their volunteer, but we know they do volunteer to various organizations, not necessarily to the church. And they do donate to charity. When asked, they will donate. They don't write checks. They're unlikely to pledge. They're least likely to pledge, but they will give, like I said, when asked. But what are they interested in? They're interested in making a difference in the community. They're interested in environmental issues, what's going to happen to our earth down the road. They want to be the church. They want the church to be involved in environmental issues. They also value diversity more so than other generations. Next slide, please. So how do the generations compare to each other on church attendance? This I also found interesting. The first section is those who say they attend every week or almost every week. 45% of millennials attend church. 31% of boomers attend church. That shocked me. I don't know about you, but I was surprised in that. Gen X's, about 27%. Those are the 49 to 60s. Those who say they attend church through virtual services, either every week or almost every week, once again, the millennials, twice as many than the boomers, 30% versus 13%, and the Gen X is in the 15%. Millennials, and this is concluded by the Lake Organization, are becoming the most churched group in the United States across all denominations. So this is clearly an opportunity. Next slide, please. Okay, so how do we encourage younger members to get involved in our church? Considerations are relate the gospel to their lives. Now that's something that we all want and we always expect when we go to a sermon. But they want us to engage science and climate initiatives and discussions. They want honest discussions. They want to model reality. They don't want to talk about morality and avoid politics. The church should look and sound like a church to young members. But what's interesting is that hybrid churches are getting the greatest attendance. And what is a hybrid church? That's a church where people attend in person and or come virtually through live streaming, which I think a lot of us are doing, particularly after COVID. What's interesting, though, is that in-person attenders to church do give more than those who just attend virtually. How else do we encourage young members? Improve our tech and our social media presence. This is especially true for young members, but boomers also. Boomers are getting better at technology and are using social media and technology a lot more. The younger generation, the millennials, 43% of millennials and Gen Z are racially diverse. So when they come to church and they see non-diverse church leaders, that's a real disconnect to them, because that's a disconnect to their workplace, it's a disconnect to their schools, it's a disconnect to their friend groups. Volunteerism. We mentioned that a little bit before, how younger generations want the church to make a difference in the community. So volunteerism needs to be an organizational principle, something that's really a focus of the church. When you look at giving patterns, younger generations need to be educated and modeled when it comes to the discipline of actually giving. They need to be made understood that consistency in giving is important if you want the church to be able to meet its mission. It's important that you show the impact of the giving, both in time, in talent, in treasure. A little later on, you're going to hear some statistics about the value of a volunteer hour in dollars. They want to know how their giving is having an impact. So communication is really important. Hopeful, being hopeful. Hopefulness appeals to young people. Young people, and this was, I guess I was the same way back in the 60s. We have desire and a conviction to change the world. Next slide, please. So how do we reach all the different generations in our church? We have all age groups. We have to match the preferences for communications in particular to the different generations. So you have to maybe use a whole bunch of different approaches. You have technology haves and have-nots. We know matures who do not use email, don't have a computer. They want somebody to pick up the phone and call them. And then you have younger people that haven't made a phone call in months. And, you know, you can send a text to them and you might get through to them on a text. Email, maybe. Electronic versus paper. You have to use both. We have matures who want to see a letter come through the mail while we still have mail service. They want to pick up and hold a pledge card and fill it out. You know, they have sort of the need for that. And then you have younger people that don't even write letters anymore, much less read letters. Text messages versus email versus phone call, like we just said. Social media is a must. Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, all the different apps for communicating, particularly with younger people. And we have to keep our websites current. It's always a good thing to Google your website, see if it comes up. Is it current? Language is important. Avoid church speak. Things like stewardship. You know, what does that mean to a Gen Z? Okay, or first fruits or tithe. They may not be able to relate to those kinds of things. So education, once again, is important. And obviously be welcoming and inclusive. And my last slide, you need to respect different generational giving habits, and they are changing as people are getting younger. I found an interesting statistic when I was looking through some of the data that was collected in some of these surveys. There actually has been a significant increase in the church median income from 2022 to 2023, post-pandemic. I was really surprised with that because that's not been the experience that we've had at our church. We're an elderly church. We're losing members. We're going the other direction. But nationwide, when you look across different traditions, there's actually been an increase in giving. So what are different options that we need to consider for the different generations? We mentioned younger people don't write checks. They don't carry cash. A lot of them don't even carry credit cards anymore. They do everything on their iPhones. So you have to be able to accommodate that through electronic giving options in the church. Boomers are also starting to move in that direction or have moved in that direction. There's been growing popularity of electronic giving post-COVID since 2020. And right in 2023, in the recent survey data, it shows that 67% of churches emphasize some type of online giving, and 48% of churches emphasize it a lot. So if you're not doing that in your church, I would strongly encourage you to consider it. We're missing some opportunities. Mobile options allow people to give anytime, anywhere. They don't have to write a check. They don't have to send it in. It doesn't mean that you can't put something in the offering plate. What you see in the box on the right is a really nice way you can have these cards available in your church for those that give electronically, and they could put something in the offering plate when somebody comes around with a plate, so they don't feel funny when the usher walks by and you're not putting anything in the plate, and you feel good about giving. There's still the need for the traditional envelopes, particularly for the mature populations and some of the baby boomers. Received at the altar, it's traditional, it appeals to the older members. What about special gifts on holy days, for flowers, for music, if you want to direct your contributions? Not that you can't do that electronically, you can make notes, but you still need to have that available. And the old traditional way is expensive to use the paper plate. Of course, there's always the loose plate. So I mentioned online giving has increased since the pandemic. And also data shows that the more emphasis on online giving and electronic giving, the greater the church's per capita, or their median income, and the greater that it's rising. So that's the end of my slides on generational considerations.
Thank you very much. We're going to hear now a case study with Mary Duke from St. Peter's in Clarksboro. Mary, unmute yourself and please talk to us about St. Peter's.
Hi, good evening. Great to be with everyone. We have some information and some numbers, some statistics, and I hope that'll be helpful to everyone. I've been a member of St. Peter's for more than 30 years. I've held many positions there. I was both wardens. I've been on vestry for many years, just stepped away last year. I've been on our stewardship committee for a number of years, and I'm also involved in finance and investment committee. We had a capital campaign for the first time, which I was part of, started that 3 years ago. And this year, Mother Mantell and I are forming a committee to start a legacy society at St. Peter's for the first time. So lots of things I've been involved in, and stewardship has certainly been a big part of my role at St. Peter's. I don't know when you want to put up the slides, or should we just talk a little bit? Okay. We certainly, as you can see, since 2020 have had a considerable growth in our membership. 2020, we had 62 members. And, the year's not over yet, but in 2024, we grew to 161 members. To note, 2020 was when Mother Mantell Bradley came to our parish.
And I'm also on too.
Yay, hi. And that's made a big difference. She's certainly been instrumental in reaching out to new members, to current members, and getting people involved in all our activities. So with that growth comes an increase in our pledges. So in 2020, we had 30 pledges for a number of $50,584. Currently, we have grown to 39 pledges, which doesn't seem like a lot, but the numbers have increased monetarily. Our last pledges were totaled 92,641, which is considerable.
But what you also need to know is that a majority of our budget comes from dead people. So speak about that, Mary. So because 92,000 doesn't run a church.
No, we have two fairly large trusts, which we cannot touch the principal, again, from dead people. And we have another, which was more recent, just members have passed, but that's in another investment account. So we get income from that. We take that annually, but the other two give us quarterly income. So that is very helpful. And that's part of the reason why we can maintain a full-time priest.
And that's the reason why they could maintain a full-time priest with only 62 members, because they received enough money to pay a full-time priest, and all they had for the most part, the endowment almost pays my salary, and the fundraising goes to pay the bills and the outreach that we do, along with the fundraising also. But
in part, that's why I'm so eager to start the legacy society as well, because I think in years to come, that will help sustain us. Okay, but we continue reaching out to our members, making connections, and Mother Mantell can tell you, we haven't heard from someone for a while. She makes a
Yeah.
call.
Right. So I'll tell you a little of the other stuff. I keep attendance. I have an iPad that sits at my desk on Sunday morning, and I write who is present from the adults to the kids the whole way through. If I don't see someone for 3 weeks, I reach out, or actually 2 weeks, I text them. 3 weeks, I send a postcard. That way I stay in touch. We have a large amount of people that have very young kids, and they're new to the congregation through baptism. All of them are, for the most part, probably 60% of the kids I baptize become members because I stay in touch with them. Now, they can't come every week. Sometimes they come once a quarter, but I text them or call them every single month. I talk to them and find out about what their children are doing. I go to their houses and visit them. The kids know who I am. So when they come to church, they are greeted. I'm always in the parish hall. Everybody comes in and out of our parish hall. And I'm right there and greet them when they come in. So, relationships a huge part of our growth. It's always been a huge part of my ministry, my entire 29 years of being a priest. I've always stayed in touch with people. All the other things that were mentioned earlier, that long list of what helps, like relating the gospel to their lives, I preach where the rubber hits the road. I never preach on a book I read because I don't have time to read books. I read for my sermons, and that's about all I read. We have social media. One of our younger members who's under 40, she does all of our social media, Instagram, Facebook. We don't have Snapchat. I have Snapchat, and I'm friends with all the kids on all my youth group kids I do Snapchat with. We're constantly sending out social media posts. The food pantry we created 2 years ago. We started by feeding 31 families. This past Sunday, Carl said 134 people. 134 families we fed. This past week, almost all of our young families have gotten involved in that. We have 5-year-olds pulling the wagon with their moms. We have teenagers in the youth group who now are old enough to be an adult in that ministry, and they pull their own wagons, where they sit and greet people when they come in the door. So that food pantry has been a huge, it's also a draw, but we have a lot of people in the community. Probably a third of the volunteers are not parishioners. They are people in Generation Z and millennials who want to make a difference in the world, and they come and work at our food pantry. We don't see them on Sunday morning. We don't care if we see them on Sunday morning. They are making a difference in their community. We lift that up. We have people on our food pantry board that are not parishioners, who are members of our food pantry board. They have a say, they have a vote, they have they're invested in this food pantry. And we also initiate kids at the local high school who help out during the school year through the food pantry. National Honor Society kids, as well as sometimes lacrosse kids and soccer kids. We do a lot of, I'm a very hopeful person. I don't know how to live not being hopeful. And that comes through, but we also, today my air condition got fixed in my second floor. It cost us $62,000 in parts and nothing in labor.
No, 6,200
in parts, right? Nothing in labor, because I had a parishioner fix it, and I waited 5 weeks to have it fixed till he was done vacation. I was done vacation, but I waited, and on Sunday morning, the next bulletin will have a huge thank you to him and his son, who are, his family and his son's family are members of the parish. And so I constantly not embarrass people, but constantly point out the gifts they give that are not monetary, that
Mother
are
Mantell,
time and talent.
I'm going to interrupt you here.
Yeah, good.
I just want to point out to those who are listening that all of the things that Mother Mantell has described are touched upon in the slides that
Yep.
we have seen already. Everything from giving to ministry and mission,
Yep.
the gifts of time and talent, the importance of being hopeful,
Yep.
the importance of using social media and staying in touch. All those things are really important, and they are definitely part of stewardship. I think we go to the
Huge.
next slide so that Mary can tell us about that.
Mhm. Okay. Okay, in terms of generational giving, families who pledged under 40 are 1. Families who give but do not pledge are 5. And people choose to not pledge for a variety of reasons. I don't see a common thread. It's for a variety of reasons. Age 41 to 55, 2 families had pledged, and 1 that give but do not pledge. Age 56 to 65, pledged 12, have not pledged 3. And over 66, 21 families pledge, and 12 do not pledge.
And do
go
not
ahead.
pledges are the ones that have envelopes and we know they give. But we also have a Zephy link
Right.
on our bulletin, and we have people that give through Zephy, both at the service and people who actually send their pledge in through Zephy every single month.
Mhm. And Zephy, just to mention, Zephy does not charge any fee for processing the giving. So that's why we chose Zephy, because we receive the full amount. So that's very helpful just to know. In terms of our growth numbers, and I know this is just taking a step back, but we talked a little bit or tried to mention how our growth breaks down in numbers. And Mother Mantell, if you want to help a little bit with this. We don't have numbers, but just as I recall, about half of them are young families, are new growth. I'd
Yes.
say maybe a quarter are the Gen Xers, and maybe a quarter are boomers, because we do have some new
Older pe- we have
older
some
people
older
that
people
have
too.
joined us. Yes.
Yeah.
So I found that interesting in our growth. It's not just young people or Gen Xers. It's spread out pretty well.
I would say a third of the growth are parishioners that were my parishioners before and have come to St. Peter's. Because when I came to St. Peter's, I had been 12 years before in 2 churches, 7 miles away and 9 miles away. And they had left all but one of the churches closed, and all but one of the people who's now joined had just left the church because the next priest was a dud, or because their lives got busy or whatever. So a third of the congregation are my sheep that have come back to me. So that's been an advantage. And that's not something I thought about when I took this job. And that was one of the blessings of it. And most of the young people growth is growth that have come through friends asking their friends to come to church. Parishioners asking their friends to come to church, or parishioners saying, I just talked to one family who wants to have their child baptized, but Brittany O'Connor, my young person who does all the social media, is friends with them and has been talking up St. Peter's for a while. And when they had a baby, she extra loudly talked about St. Peter's, and that family's coming to get the baby baptized and to join the congregation with the baptism of the child. A baby we just baptized last week was a couple that I had married. And I said, and I say this boldly, when I marry a couple, I say, if you have a child, you're starting to come to church. That child needs the church. And I'm bold in that. And 80% of those couples, they have a kid, they bring it to church, and they start coming to church on a regular basis.
Mother Mantell, I'm going to have to
Yeah, that's good.
stop you here because you have so much good information to share with everybody, but we have to move on at this
Yes.
point.
And I have to go take,
Um,
I took drugs, so I have to go to bed. But
okay, all
Megan,
right. Well,
Megan,
you have a
share
good
my
evening.
email. Please share my email. And if anyone would like to talk, would be honored to speak to them and try to help them and the things we've done. So please share that.
Okay, okay, we
I'm
will.
going, I'm
Mary,
getting off.
thank
Thank you.
Okay,
thank you.
bye.
Okay.
Mary, thank you very much too.
You're
We'll
welcome.
move
I
to
hope
the
it-
next slide, but then we're going to take a moment. We'll stop here and let people who are attending through Zoom to ask a few questions. We can't obviously take a lot of questions at this point. There will be breakout rooms at the end, but we thought we'd just take a moment. If you have a question, maybe we could put down the slideshow for the moment. Is that possible, Mother Susanna? Thank you. Do we have any questions? Any hands raised? All right, seeing none, then we're going to move on. If you could put the slideshow back up, thank you. There we are. Nicole.
Great, thank you. To Mary and Mother Mantell, thank you for that information. It's gold to me. So I will be reaching out. That's a guarantee. So I have the next few slides here. And as a reminder, at its heart, stewardship really is all about how we care about one another, how we share, of course, our time, our gifts, our resources, all for the glory of God. It's about being faithful to the trust that God has placed in us to build up the body of Christ in all of its beauty and in all of its diversity. So I'm going to be talking a bit about the diversity part of things from the experience that I have, which is quite limited. It's focused on sort of one culture, but it can be translated. That's not the right word I want to use here, but it's something that we all can kind of take with us wherever we are. One of the greatest blessings, I think, of the Episcopal Church is the richness and the diversity that we have here among us. And within our congregations, we have people who bring different languages, different traditions, and lived experiences of what it means to give and to serve and to belong. And so that's why it's important for us to remember that stewardship is not only a matter only of translation when we're dealing with people who speak maybe a different language. It's also about culture and the way that stewardship is understood and practiced among various cultures can really differ greatly from one community to another. So, for example, in my own context, in All Saints in Lakewood, where I am, our Spanish-speaking congregation is made up largely of families from Mexico, but we also have members from the Dominican, from Honduras, Guatemala, Peru, and so forth. But even among those groups, there are cultural expressions and differences among them. During stewardship season and really throughout the entire year, we're called to be intentional about understanding what stewardship means to, of course, all of us and to every community within our church from their and our perspectives collectively. And so sometimes that might mean we need to offer some education. Other times it might mean we need to listen and speak a little less and adapt to the way we frame our message. And most importantly, the best way to do this is making sure that the voices of all involved, all the communities are involved, are present at the table for these conversations. So ideally, stewardship committees will have representation from, in my example, Spanish-speaking community of our church would be on that committee. So we are on the correct slide here. Our diocese, as we know, is a rich tapestry of cultures and language. We're multiracial, multicultural, multilingual, with congregations worshiping in English, Spanish, Creole, Igbo. The diversity is really one of our greatest strengths, and it calls us to be especially attentive to the realities and the needs of our members. Many of our parishioners are immigrants, and some of them right now, as we know, are living with this added stress and vulnerability if they're undocumented. Even if they're not undocumented, there's just this really added weight, added stress. As we approach stewardship, especially this year, I think we should be mindful of those unique challenges that people are carrying. Another important reality mixed in with all of this kind of compounding, or it makes it a little more complex, is that any new member can possibly be from another denomination, right? So a lot of our members are former Roman Catholics, and because of that, they may not be familiar right away with the way the Episcopal Church is structured or the way that we deal with funds. So unlike the Roman Catholic Church, which is more maybe top down, ours is more democratic or horizontal, if you will. And, we really rely upon our pledges. These commitments are not just sort of nice to have. They are essential for keeping the lights on and keeping our churches open. So recognizing this in our church, in All Saints, we've been very intentional about educating our members in several ways. So first, any new member coming through, we do have confirmation and reception courses where we explain sort of the doctrine and where we're coming from, the Episcopal tradition. Secondly, with Spanish-speaking lay leaders in our church, they have monthly meetings. We take that opportunity to provide kind of like 101s about the difference between the Episcopal Church and the Roman Catholic Church. That yes, it might look a bit the same liturgically, but we are quite different underneath the surface and understanding those things. And then third, in the worship itself, through sermons, testimonials, for example, we have specifically invited Father Ramon Ubiera to preach during stewardship season with our Spanish-speaking folks, so that he could speak kind of heart to heart and helping them understand the importance of sort of giving in every kind of way. This has actually resulted in the number of our pledges, well, how do you say, 4 times, increasing 4 times, from 5 pledges in 2021 and 22 to 20 last year. The message that we try to communicate consistency is that pledging matters no matter the amount. Even $1 a week makes a difference because it helps us to plan our budget, and it helps the community to feel that they've committed to the church as well in the ministry that we share. Next slide, please. So ignore the cat noise. She's not going to make a cameo. In my own ministry, I've learned how important word choice is, right? We all know this, but it can get tricky when you're dealing with different cultures. So words and phrases don't always translate neatly between English and Spanish, not only in terms of sentence structure, but in terms of cultural meaning and acceptance. So often if I'm doing a service in Spanish or preaching in Spanish, I often test translations by running them in both directions. I'll write in a Microsoft Word, I'll translate it in Word, and then I print it. I then translate it back into English through Google Translate, and that's where I'll find sort of all the glitches between the various meanings. I like to try and break it, if you will, to make sure I'm not being inconsiderate to the best of my ability when I'm engaging with people. Almost every time I catch 1 or 2 errors, that could be really embarrassing, honestly, if they're not corrected. One example, which is not a big deal, it's very subtle, but like in our vestry agenda, for years we've had, old business, new business sections. And when you translate that to Spanish, it comes across as like an accounting or a bookkeeping term, which is confusing. So after many years of no one saying a word about it, finally somebody said, this doesn't make sense. We're talking about new items, old items. And so we've updated the wording to, old action items, new announcements, or items to discuss. These small adjustments make a big difference in clarity and people who aren't the primary speaking, like if you're not the part of the English speaking group, you might feel embarrassed to speak up, and we want people to speak more, be more open. So that experience reminded me that they may be reluctant to voice their concerns. And so I've started to rely more on professional translation, paying for translation services for our vestry meetings, getting trusted volunteers who can provide some cultural context that a literal translation simply can't do. And so for stewardship, this is really important with this slide illustrates. So words like stewardship or pledge may feel very natural to us in English or not. But for many Spanish speaking folks, they might sound intimidating or contractual or static, right? Pledge might be heard as something more binding, leading to anxiety. Like, what if I can't keep up with my giving, with what I promised? Will I be breaking an agreement, sort of thing? And in a year like this year, where the anxiety is kind of high, we don't want to do that. So one approach might be to explore more friendly, accessible language. Instead of saying stewardship campaign, maybe we frame it as campaign of generosity, conveying the same intent, but feeling much more welcoming and less rigid. So these are just some of the ways to be thoughtful around language, build trust, create space for all voices. Next slide, please. All right. So as I move in this slide and the next, I want to emphasize this is an ideal state. This is not like I've not achieved this at all. It's my goal, but I think these are some good practices. So the first principle here is simple but powerful. So it's always sort of listening before we speak or make assumptions, especially when working with a culture that's not our own, right? It's not our primary main culture. So with my own experience at my church, All Saints in Lakewood, we have many Spanish-speaking members. I've learned the importance of just simply being with them and not really necessarily having to say anything, just sort of hanging out at coffee hour, having lunch, being present. And so for the first few years, I didn't understand a word they were saying. Now I understand about half of what's being said. That's better. It's not great. But by just listening and being present, it shows trust instead of imposing my agenda, right, of my stewardship idea into somebody else's culture. It does not work like that. Like a lift and shift doesn't really work so well. So I'm probably saying that like 100 times here, but I can't say it enough. So we just don't want to come across tone deaf or disconnected. We want to engage first, leave space for dialogue. So maybe that's a listening session, right, or a forum. Maybe it's a series of informal discussions with people and asking, how do you understand giving in the church? Or what does stewardship, or some other word, right, mean to you? What can we learn from each other? And we'll find that typically all of us need education, and we may not realize it, on culture or on church governance or on stewardship itself. So this is an opportunity for everybody to learn and to strengthen relationships. Actually, stewardship season may be an opportunity for us to sort of get closer with communities we may normally not sit with, just for the purpose of, building something together. So, practically speaking, it's great to sketch out at least a basic communications plan, even though the details of that will shift, the timeline and deliverables may shift. But the primary thing I want to say is representation is so vital. At least a member of the minority group should be on the stewardship committee, but true integration would go further, right? This is the ideal state. It would mean more than just one seat at the table. It might involve completely different looking committee where other speaking members might form their own committee and we join it. Or there's a liaison between two different groups. I don't know, we could be innovative, but we want to make sure we're being attentive and making sure our messages land well and are culturally sensitive, I guess is the word I'm looking for. And I recommend engaging professionals, translators, trained volunteers who can go beyond this word for word translation thing. And finally, one of the most impactful practices that we've shared here through the various 3 webinars is the testimonials. So in our example, the Spanish speaking, we would want a separate testimonial for time, treasure, and talent, whether it's somebody speaking about volunteering at our thrift shop or pledging financially or offering the gifts of music or helping with buildings and grounds. But hearing their own faith stories in their own language makes their message both relatable and inspiring. Next slide, please. I realize I'm taking a long time. I'll speed it up. Sorry, get very passionate about this topic. So just like the last slide, the testimonials are key. And we want to share stories across those 3 areas. I have found in our community, our Spanish speaking community, food is a real love language. So we may not be able to give as much financially, but we can give a whole lot through food. This is our heart. And we did a fundraiser where they insisted we make food, and through just one of the food stands, we sold $1,200 in tacos, which was pretty extraordinary for one fundraiser for one station. But the real question is, what does that mean for that family who created that thing? They created those tacos, they created that idea. How did it deepen their sense of belonging and participation and giving to the church? How can we build on that? How can we energize that, expand opportunities so that more families can share their gifts? Another key is ensuring our graphics and our messaging are culturally relevant and authentic. So this year I've invited a bilingual team to join us and do our videos, or help with our videos, graphics, etc. And then there's the practical question of the how. What platforms do people use? So in our case, Spanish speakers use WhatsApp primarily for most things. A lot of them use Facebook, and of course, physical signage is helpful. So we want to roll out a stewardship campaign that's really well thought out, both in English and Spanish. And the next slide might be the last-ish one. Next to last. Okay, so this is our church. The bishop visited in, I think this was from December. And we faced real challenges in securing pledges. Again, we invited Father Ramon the last 2 or 3 years to preach on the importance of giving in all ways. He emphasized the importance of giving through pledges, even if it's $1 a week, so we know how to budget and what we can plan for, and stress the importance of like keeping the lights on, being able to pay the bills. And again, we went from 5 pledges to 20 in the course of 3 years. At the same time, it's recognized that stewardship goes way beyond finances. Many of our members give of their time and talent. So we have a mother and daughter who volunteer every Saturday in our thrift shop, and it generates about $300 in sales a day, or $300 to $500 a week. So seen another way, their service is a weekly gift of $300, let's say, if it's a good week. Instead of giving financially, they may be giving that way through the thrift shop. Another family mows the grass for a very low cost, which offsets what we would have paid, a contractor or a business. We also hold dedicated work days where people contribute their skills on major projects like flooring, wheelchair ramps. We updated the wood on the railing, landscaping. Musically, on our Spanish speaking side, our chorus, now we have somebody who plays, piano and guitar or keyboard. So that is a savings of about $10,000 a year of not paying for, say, an organist for that service. And then, of course, the food. I already mentioned the famous taco stand there, and we're just a beautiful community, and it's important to tap into the various gifts. And this has empowered people to think, you know what, I'm not a minority here. This is my church. I'm a leader of this church, And people have really stepped up and taken ownership. Half of our vestry is now Spanish speakers, which is to me a really, really key and crucial thing. And next slide. I'm about done here. Yeah, I promise. Okay. So this is the slide that Lou had promised for some numbers, some stats. Again, our thrift shop provides this powerful example. We make about 25,000 a year for just our thrift shop. That's not shown on the slide here. So, you know, that's a lot of money that somebody is donating through just their time. But if you look at this slide at the benchmarks, University of Maryland School of Public Policy estimates that the average value of a volunteer hour at $34.79. Skilled trades like carpenters or bookkeepers in New Jersey are $25 to $30 an hour. And here in the Episcopal Diocese of New Jersey, musicians are paid between $100 and $250 every Sunday. By that standard, musicians who serve every week at our Spanish-speaking service, as I mentioned, would be equivalent to about 10,000 annually that we don't pay for because we have their time and their talent. So if you add up in my church just the music and the thrift shop, that's $35,000 to the church that's not pledged. It's time and talent. So the point again that we all know here, stewardship is so much more than pledges. Yes, our financial giving is essential. We can't run without it. But when we count the value of time and talent, we see our communities are already contributing in extraordinary ways to strengthen the church. So I think I'll stop there. Yeah, I've said enough.
Nicole, thank you so much. I mean, this is really enlightening, and you speak with so much passion and energy about the contributions of your Hispanic congregation to the mission of All Saints Lakewood. I really appreciate what you've had to say. All right, Christy, you're on next.
Yes. I was going to discuss electronic giving, e-giving. Lou and Mother Mantell and Mary touched on this earlier. It's basically electronic funds transfer. We probably all have our paychecks direct deposited, or we have our mortgage payment automatically withdrawn from our checking account. Same idea, we just apply it to the church. And we might want to think about doing this because it's going to help with staff as far as time and energy goes with the church staff. And it's also going to make donors happy. I think at this point, a lot of people expect to see an electronic giving option, or when you go to pay a bill, you might expect to be able to pay it online. It's the same idea. You're just used to, I don't have checks, I don't have cash, but I want to pull out my phone and send you money. That's the kind of the advantage to electronic giving. Next slide. These are different apps or platforms that facilitate the funds transfer. Money will flow from your bank or credit card to the church's bank account. And in between, it's going to be moved around by an app or a platform like one of these. These are just some of the ones that are available. And some of them are specifically designed for churches. So it's just, you know, when you go, I guess, shopping for an e-give partner, these are some of them. Now, as I was saying, these guys are in the middle. These are the middlemen of the money transfer. And like any middleman, they're going to want a cut. You know, they're going to want a cut of the amount transferred. Either it'll be a percentage of the amount moved, or it could be a flat rate. It could be a combination. And there are some that are actually free. Mary, I think, mentioned Zephy as one. Another option that a lot of them will have too is asking the donor to cover the transaction fees. Vanco does that for St. Francis. And that's like, and for Vanco, let me just say, for all of them, actually, the transaction fees, just to give you an idea, they can range from 1% to 2.5%. Some of them are 49 cents per transaction. One or two might even be 11%. And then up two, you have to watch out because some of them have a software fee as well, or they might have a customer service contract as well. So when you start looking, if you start looking for a new e-giver, there's a good bit to keep in mind. Next, please. As a saying, these are the things you might want to keep in mind. The user-friendly is, I mean, it sounds kind of obvious. It's got to be usable for your crowd, but you really got to match tech. This came up earlier too. You have your tech haves and your have-nots. So you kind of got to measure how much your tech not people might actually use it, kind of thing. So that's got to weigh heavily, as does the affordability, whether there's fees or transaction fees or licensing fees. Also, it has the advantage, it can have the advantage of reporting and analytics. And you might want to make sure it integrates with whatever church management software you have. If you do these things, you will make your finance people happy. And that's something we want to keep doing, is making finance happy. But the biggest item on this list, I'd say, is the mobile optimization. That's just a fancy way of saying pay on the go. You want people to be able to pay anytime, anywhere. I want to be able to pull out my phone and buy that craft, buy that piece of pottery you're selling at the St. Francis tent at the Dunellen Street Fair, but I don't have cash. Why would I? I'm going to pull out my phone and I'm going to scan a QR code that St. Francis has on their table. See, there's one on the form. Every app or platform will give you one, or you can generate your own. But being able to give anytime, anywhere, that's very important. Not just for your recurring giving. People can sign up for recurring giving, and every week they make their pledge to the church. Every month they pay their pledge to the church. Set it and go. But with the mobile optimization, it's great for events, pancake suppers, what have you. So I would very much emphasize the importance of having that. Next. I think I mentioned a lot of this already. You might be asking yourself at this point, am I really going to be paying money to get money? And do I need the hassle that it's going to take to get a new system set up, get the congregation on board? How the heck am I going to explain this to the congregation? And I think the simple answer is that we want to be 21st century present. This is just how people function. In this day and age, it's people are used to electronics. I want my iPad, I want my iPhone, and I want to be able to just do things without looking for the checkbook. And if things are easy to do, people are more likely to do it. So if we have an easy QR code, you can put it on your bulletin, you can put it in the narthex, you can put it in your newsletter. You want to plaster that thing everywhere you can. Because if you're making giving easy, people are just more likely to do it. And if I'm not measuring out the cash in my wallet, I'm probably going to give you more. So that's something else to think about. I think that's all I had on these topics. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Christy. So this is the slide at which we invite you to think about what you've heard and what you might find useful. But we also at this point need Mother Susanna Cates to divide us into breakout rooms where we can spend a little time sharing ideas. I'd love to hear from folks what you've found useful, what we've missed. So last time we had 5 breakout rooms. Maybe we'll have about that many this time, Susanna, and then we'll go for maybe, I don't know, 12 minutes or so. That would probably give us time.